weird thing happened, Paul, where all of a sudden I stopped chasing customers and customers started chasing me.
All right, this is Paul DeLuca. I'm your host for the Growth Game podcast. We've got a special guest star this week. Alex Sheridan was happy to jump in and come on the Growth Game podcast. Alex, we're thrilled to have you here and really looking forward to our conversation and getting to know each other a little bit.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So, we've you and I have never met. I think you know some of the people surrounding me, some of the people that work with me. But I always love doing these podcasts where it's total intro and in free form. It's really enjoyable that way. But if you haven't gathered, I am a lender, but not a banker. I started out in the staffing industry in the '90s, and then I've been financing staffing companies for my whole career, really, and finance about 800 staffing companies. So kind of everything we do is finding ways to pattern match growth and help our clients grow. And everything we do is around staffing primarily. And so we're super excited to be able to kind of have the intersection from your experience in staffing as well as your content-led sales. And so it's super cool. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, Alex, trying to figure out how did you tell me a little bit about your staffing journey? I know you were in staffing for a while, and now you're an influencer online. I see you every day on LinkedIn talking about content. Talk to me about the journey.
Yeah, I was in staffing for 6 years at
Okay.
one of the largest staffing firms in the
Mm-hmm.
country, Aerotek.
Yep.
And, it was B2B sales, knocking on
Yep.
doors, cold calling, sending email. And really, man, and I started that company in 2014, left in
Mm-hmm.
2020,
Yep.
right after COVID. Really back then when I started, that was the way. Like there was no LinkedIn wasn't what it was today. Social media wasn't what it was just like, you just picked
Yep.
up the phone and you made calls or you
Right.
emailed or whatever it was. In about 2019, I was flirting with the idea of starting my own consulting company, my own coaching
Mm-hmm.
company. I was in
Yep.
sales. I was training other salespeople in the staffing company. And I thought, I'm going to start my own sales coaching consulting business. This sounds like something I should at least give a shot to. And so I started posting content on LinkedIn because I was like, maybe I should build my brand. Social media
Mm-hmm.
is getting bigger. LinkedIn seems like it's got a little buzz
Yep.
right now. And I started posting videos and content in late 2019 and even in
Mm-hmm.
early 2020. And this weird thing happened, Paul, where all of a sudden I stopped chasing customers and customers started chasing me. I
Right.
became the hunted versus having to always be the hunter, which was a brand new perspective from a hardcore B2B sales rep, right?
Right.
And so what was happening was people were seeing my videos on LinkedIn and I was
Yep.
talking about, sales and optimizing your LinkedIn profile and social selling and that kind of stuff. And they were saying, hey, I'm seeing you're making the videos and you're doing this thing on LinkedIn. Can you help us? Can you help me
Right.
build out my profile or me make videos on LinkedIn and talk about these types of things? And that's really where it started. And then it happened pretty quickly. I won my first customer. I decided to kind of pivot my business into that
Mm-hmm.
versus the sales coaching specifically. That
Right.
was 2020, February 2020, won my first customer, July 2020. I'm leaving my corporate job, the staffing agency, to go do this full time.
Wow, that's exciting. So you really built your personal brand and you led the personal brand into your business. That was really key for you then.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
great. Well, and you've had a lot of impact. When you look at the personal brand development, kind of what does that look like then over the last 3 years, and how do you differentiate your business growth with your personal brand growth? I mean, are they just absolutely intermarried? Do they each take a life of their own? I'm just curious about the last 3 years in that transition from personal brand to a business brand, and what really is the strategy, or how do you manage the strategy between both and the voice that each has?
They're definitely intertwined for sure, at least the way I've done it. Now, I think that and I think they always should run parallel to each other. I think there's never a time when you would have a CEO or a founder where the brand would go this direction and of the personal brand would go this direction and the company brand would go that direction. There always
Right.
should be running parallel and be connected. But I do think it depends on the size of the company in terms of how you approach a lot of these strategies.
Right.
For me, I look at it like Alex is the personal brand. So people
Yeah.
get to know me, they understand
Right.
what I'm about, they understand what I stand for. They know my personality. They know what I'm about in terms of the value that I put out there in my content every single day, every single week. And
Right.
that drives business to the company. But then the company has its own brand because we have
Hmm.
people and employees and we have clients that we work with that sometimes people with the personal brand that listen to them, watch the personal brand, they may not see that, but it
Yeah.
ties back into the company brand. And so,
Hmm.
we can get in a whole brand conversation, but that's kind of how I look at it from a high level. Like the personal
Yeah.
brand is separate from the company brand,
Right.
but it should be funneling business into the company, and the company brand should line up with the personal brand.
Right. Yeah, they absolutely have to run parallel, right? And that transparency, that really, what you're known for needs to almost take a life of its own, and really the business needs to have a personality that matches the CEO. And I think that's really what's interesting in this kind of whole new way of letting your perfect ideal clients get to know you and your brand. And something that's been an interesting journey for me over the last 2 years is that really both have a personality. The business has a personality. When people work with the business and all the employees, we have 80 employees when you look at the entire stack, right? Well, okay, they're all going to inform that relationship. They're going to inform the understanding of the brand itself, the business, but it has to be contributory. And if they're not aligned, people see that disconnect very quickly. And I think if they are aligned, all of a sudden you get this formula for success. It's pretty powerful.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's interesting. Some of my top people, I think many of them were influenced by your trajectory and such seeing what you were doing on the personal branding. And we've been talking about it for years. I remember the day that my senior VP, who I know you met, sat me down and said, "Paul, you're enthusiastic. People love it when they get to know you, but they don't get to know you enough. Like we're going to start videoing you." And I'm like, "What? How am I going to take time to do this?" Like I resisted for years until I jumped in and started doing it. I can honestly say that I've done it now. Obviously, we've got the podcast. We do a lot of video content, and it has completely changed the way that I approach our business. And so, thank you to you and many like you who've led the way. It's really enjoyable. I actually think all the way back to the original days when Gary V was getting going. He still had his podcast doing the wine podcast. So this goes back 20 years. My partner at the time said, "You can do this. You should be this guy." I should have started 20 years
Wow.
ago, man.
Wow. Well, typically when you
I was a little late to the party.
when you talk to founders, CEOs, and just like you just said was a great testament,
Hmm.
Paul. You said this has been transformational for our business,
Yeah,
building our brand and personal brand and
it is.
video. Most people say, "Yeah, I wish I would have done this sooner," and I never look back and say, "Ah, I wish I wouldn't have done this." It's typically the
Right.
opposite. I wish I
Yeah,
would have started this like 5 to 10 years earlier. But at the
exactly.
same token, there's people that haven't done anything yet,
I know.
and that's actually most people. That's a majority of
Right.
the percentage, right? So
I
we're actually
agree.
still way ahead and still
Yeah.
pioneering in a lot of ways.
I agree, and I think it's evolving, and it's really fun. I mean, it's
It
interesting.
is.
Like the my mindset changes now. Like really, the way I approach the business and approach the brand changes. Everything I'm thinking about is very content forward, and I think that really informs the progress of the whole business. And so it's a very interesting transformational thing just outside of sales and marketing. It's even just it's informed and changed the way I approach even internal communication. So it's very cool. So talk to me a bit about kind of how you um, drive content. You're approaching a mid-sized company and you're trying to get the CEO and the branding people, the sales and marketing folks to cooperate and try to get them to realize transparency and content makes so much sense. How do you approach it from teaching them to build internal teams as opposed to using the external agency model? How do you see the differential and how do you approach and recommend what is the right approach?
It's one of the biggest shifts in marketing that has happened, I think, in the last 3 years, maybe five, but probably more like 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
And that is that we're starting to see, and I'll give the reasons why, but we're starting to see companies use less marketing agencies. It doesn't mean they don't
Yep.
outsource anything or they don't leverage
Right.
experts. It doesn't mean that. It means they're starting to use less marketing agencies to do all of their content for them. And
Hmm.
they're starting to say, hey, we can actually build our own internal content team. And that's a lot of
Right.
the content that I put out there is educating folks on how to do this.
Yeah.
Because when we come into a company and they're working with a marketing agency, we typically see they're trying to do everything for the
Yeah.
company. And what
Right.
happens when you try to be everything for everyone, it just ends up diluting all of it. So they're trying to do the website, the branding, the messaging,
Yeah.
the video, the social media strategy, the this, the LinkedIn, the YouTube. And so all of it suffers. And so we end up
Yeah.
having to come into a company and say, well, your brand is kind of positioned like a commodity. It's not really,
Yeah.
there's no unique differentiator. You're not really telling a story with your brand. The
Yeah.
content strategy is completely off, that the company doesn't know how to do marketing or video themselves, and so they're not
Hmm.
teaching you how to do video. And
Right.
if so there's a lot of just problems. It's less effective, it's cost more over time.
Yeah.
It's you don't need crazy technology now. You can film videos, really high performing videos, with a smartphone and and simple wireless mic,
Right.
and you've just got things at your fingertips like AI and automation and things like that. So for all of those reasons, we're just starting to see a big shift where companies are kind of ditching, and we say goodbye to your marketing agency and start to build your own internal content team where you've got the
Yeah.
control. You're bringing the brand back in the house, and then you
Right.
leverage experts, and you outsource some things that you don't want to do
Hmm.
yourself, maybe like website design and things like that,
Yeah.
of course. But you're really owning the process of creating the content and building the
Mhm.
brands.
Yeah, I think it's super important. And then you're really hiring very specific, narrow expertise to do specific things. For instance, video production. I don't have video production in house, right? Like, and I like it. I like the way we've been driving the business because I'm starting to see the outsource to really align for specific tactics that rolls up to the strategy that we own more. And
Yep.
frankly, if we manage it correctly, we're going to be better at it than an agency that's got 10, 20, 100 clients is what I'm seeing. It'd be very successful for us. Talk to me a bit though specifically about staffing. I understand some of your largest clients are in the staffing business. I think I saw one of them was in one of the fastest growing businesses
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
US or something. So talk to me about specifically in staffing. What are you seeing? How does content led sales really help the staffing organization get
It's
moving?
really it's really the same that it would impact any industry, where it's one where you're leveraging personal brand from the founder
Yeah.
CEO level to drive top of the funnel leads. Now we'd
Yes.
love to get other employees involved and create
Hmm.
content too, but the CEO or founder has to lead the way, right? So we
Right.
can't expect these some companies get on, I want my people to start creating content, start building your personal brand,
Yeah.
and you're not doing anything yourself as a leader.
Yeah.
That's a tough road to go down, right?
I agree.
So we're seeing it from that standpoint. But I would also say, Paul, like things with, and it's funny you mentioned that company, because that company happens
Mhm,
to be the one where we were almost 6 months into working with them. They had a
mhm.
marketing agency. We've had to basically
Yeah.
redo all the things that the marketing agency came in and did,
Right.
from branding,
Right.
messaging to content strategy to video to editing out, like
Mhm,
all of it. And so
mhm.
now we're at a place where we're having honest conversations around, let's say goodbye to them for most of the
Yeah.
things, and let's
Yeah.
really do this the right way. But
Yeah.
we also, it's important to have videos throughout the buyer journey, throughout the sales process. So when you go to the website, you see a video that explains the brand story, right? So we don't just
Mhm.
sound like everyone else. We don't just say, this is what we do. We do video marketing and social media marketing. Great. Everyone can say that.
Yeah.
Can everyone say that headline in your website, or is what you're saying really different? And is it really
Right.
inviting a customer into a story that they can be a part of and they can see
Mhm.
themselves as the hero in that story?
Yeah.
So there's the personal brand side, the company side, but then there's just the videos in the sales process where
Yeah.
maybe someone's booking a call because they're scheduled an interview with your company. And instead of what
Mhm,
most companies do is say, here's your interview, we're confirmed for this date. Now you've got a video that hits their inbox and says, hey,
mhm.
my name's Alex. I'm the founder of the company. We're so excited to interview with you soon. Here's what to expect. And here's
Yeah.
what's going to happen after the interview. And
Mhm.
here's some things you might want to check out even before the interview to make sure that you're prepped and you understand this and this. We're excited to
Got
see
it.
you soon. Hit us up with any questions. We'll talk to you soon.
Very
Right. So
cool.
we actually can embed video in almost every single process of the sales
Mhm.
or recruitment process.
Got it. Got it. So you're really looking at it as a twofold approach, which always it is. I mean, staffing is all about matchmaking, right? Like when it all
Yes.
comes right down to it. So you're really approaching this saying, listen, you've got to have video. That's how you connect with people. That's how you drive, you drive the human connection in a virtual world. And you're doing that both on the candidate side as well as on the client side. Yeah, I love that. I think
And
that's
and you could
really
you could do
important.
video job
Sure.
descriptions or something that we would
Right.
recommend
So
people
much
do,
better.
right? Like, yeah, it's so much better, and like really do them right, and make them
Yeah.
almost like a social media video where they're
Fun.
fun to consume, but they learn about the company and the culture and things like that. at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you're trying to how do we really showcase and tell the brand story, and how do we
Yeah.
differentiate? How do we not be like every other company? Because in the staffing world, as you know,
Hmm.
and your clients know, like
It's
it's very
commoditized.
crowded. It's very
It is.
crowded, and
Yep.
most companies they commoditize themselves on accident
Hmm.
because they just don't know any better, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, got it. You talked a little, you mentioned it, but when you say AI, I find, of course, it's the buzzword. I just saw somebody today that like changed their entire tagline, even though they were in software doing normal stuff. They you know, changed their entire tagline to be AI. Like people are, it's becoming ubiquitous. People are using the term too much. But specifically in the environment of video content and staffing, are there any specific AI tools that you've seen really impact? I know we're kind of at the very beginning of this, this cycle, but are there some specific things that have positive impact?
Man, I think one of the most underrated AI tools, and I say
Hmm.
underrated, but it's going to be the most that people are actually aware of,
Yeah,
is still ChatGPT. Is
yeah,
still the ChatGPT 4, whatever version we're on now, where I can
right,
go in there and I can create just about anything, right? So
yeah,
I could say, hey, I want
really,
to make a, I say, hey, I want to make a video about, I want to do a video job description, for example,
yeah,
or I want to
yeah,
do a video for social media. I need help. Here's the message I want to communicate. Here's my brand story. Here's my
yeah,
ideal clients. Here's their pain points. Here's their dream states. Here's where they want to go. Here's how the
yeah,
story unfolds. Create me this, and this, and this. Or I can
yeah,
take a newsletter that we've done and turn it into a YouTube video, or
mhm,
vice
right,
versa. Or I can transcribe a YouTube video and turn it into a newsletter email. There's just so
yes,
many, there's a million things. Even I use it in simple as like, I'm writing this email, maybe it's to a client, to a candidate, whatever it
yeah,
is. Can you refine this email? This sounds like too wordy. I'm not using the right, I think the
yeah,
spelling's off. Just make this sound a lot better. Or hey, I've
yeah,
got an email that's going to go out, and I got the subject line now that's going to be 10 words. Make it 6 words and
yeah,
make it more clickbaity and punchy. And here's 10 examples of other good subject lines that we've used that have over 50%
yeah.
open rates. Let's dial this in, and boom, it does it for you. I mean, it's literally, I say, like, AI is like a mini creative assistant that you have
I agree
at
with
your
that.
fingertips, and it's free, or maybe 20
Yeah,
bucks a month, right? On top of that, we've got a lot of video AI platforms
okay.
now. You've got your Opus clips and things like that, but you've also just got
Mhm.
AI is finding its way in Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects and
Yeah,
Runway, where we're able to
mhm,
remove and ahs very quickly. We're able to remove
mhm.
silence with silence detection. We're able to, green screen people out. It used to take an hour to do, what we can now do in a second. And
Oh
so
wow,
it's going to be pretty wild in terms of what we can do even in the next couple of years, as I'm sure you would agree. But there's
yeah,
quite a bit of stuff now that you can do. The problem is most people try to do it and they're not really educated on how to really do it well. And so they'll say
yeah,
things like AI sucks. It can't write your post. It can't help write your post or copy. It's going to sound like a robot. It's like, not if you're
yeah,
really freaking good at it and you give it
yeah,
exact examples and specifics and you want to prompt this thing
right,
and then quality check it on the way out. Like, it can be freaking amazing. And to your
yeah.
point, Paul, we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. But here's what I find that's so interesting. People are so fearful of the just getting started. And I am such a believer in ChatGPT. I spend the $20 a month. And I mean, it's literally like I have an extra 5 MBAs working for me.
I pay
Because
20 times that easily,
yeah, it can do
Yeah.
stuff. It can do stuff for me so quickly and so intelligently. I was just really impacted this last week when I finally started using the video, the audio,
Oh, yeah.
and so I have it's building its own model about me. I'm not sharing that data to inform the model, so I can keep my stuff private. But it's been getting to know all of the things in my life and my business life over the last year. It's building that model. It's getting better and better and better. Now I started talking to it, and really, what I do all the time is I just say, "Tell me exactly what other things you can do to impact my business. Give me some ideas." It's just the
Yep.
brainstorming is so
Insane.
powerful. It is absolutely it's really incredible. And I tell all of my contacts, all of just start. Get spend the $20, get on OpenAI, start to use it and brainstorm and use it as that creative assistant, really in anything. And the other thing I feel like is search is dead. I mean, now with the new version, ask it anything. It gives you the summary of everything that this world knows about it, but it's also giving you the specific web pages to be able to link to things to be able to fact check. So like I just yeah, I'm such a huge believer in
Yeah.
that, and it's nice to see there's other tools coming out. But I firmly believe. in business, if you're not implementing a specific AI strategy, you're going to be left behind in 5 years to the point to where you're not going to be able to catch up. Like it just it's something you have to start now. That's how I feel.
There's no question about it.
Yeah, great.
No question about it.
So let's talk about kind of how you approach this, idea, ideation when it comes to content. So you've got a new client. You've got a CEO that goes, "Yes, I get it. I have something to say, but how do you get it out of me?" How do you approach pulling the right kind of content out of a business, out of a person to be able to help them build their brand and get it on display?
Well, the first thing we do with the company, and typically the CEO or the founder is leading the way on this, but the first step is I'm going to build out a brand strategy. So I'm going to go
Hmm.
through the messaging, how they're positioning themselves in the marketplace, because
Hmm.
typically there's just a massive misalignment where
Right.
we'll go to the website and they're just, again, commoditizing themselves, or they look and sound like every other company in the industry. There's nothing unique. There's no differentiation. Again, there's no story that they're inviting the customer into. So
Yep.
typically we start there, and what that does is that actually, once we get clear on that, on the branding and messaging, that actually lays out a lot of the foundation for the
Hmm.
content. Because now we're
Right.
like, okay, now I know, like, who is the villain in the story?
Hmm.
Like, most people can't
Hmm.
answer that question. Like, you've got a story
Yeah.
you're communicating to your customer. Who's the villain? Who's the
Hmm.
hero? Who's the
Yeah.
guide? Right? What are we pushing against in terms of
Yeah.
industry norms, or what is our bold take on our area of expertise? Most companies are just
Hmm.
kind of like, I guess we've never thought of that, right? So
Right.
that is where we go first, and then we get to,
Hmm.
okay, now that we've got that down, sort of the high level, really important stuff. Now let's zoom down a little bit and let's go through a content strategy. And when I talk
Hmm.
content strategy, I'm talking off social media and then
Yep.
on social media, right? Because
Hmm.
content is not just social media or LinkedIn; it's
Right.
both. So, whether it be email, podcasting, website content, any of that type
Hmm.
of stuff, and then we go on social, and it's LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, anything like that, right? So,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's kind of how we start it. And then the third step for us specifically, because again, we are not a marketing agency, or the anti-marketing agency. We help them build out their internal content team. So we say we got a
Got
brand
it.
message, we've got our story, we've got the content strategy built out. We know what we want to say, how we want to connect with our customers, what platforms we're going to be on. Now we need to say, who do we need to be a part of this team to make that happen? How do we
Got it.
bring this vision and mission to life now? And that's where we
Hmm.
start assembling the team. And then we start training and coaching and mentoring that team to where they're a high performing
Hmm.
content team.
Hmm. And you usually look at that as a full time employee that you're helping them either identify or recruit internally, and then train them so that you can really set them up in their content journey. But you like to preach they have to internalize it and they have to work for the company. Is that the idea?
Yeah, but it could be talent abroad, right?
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
could be a video editor in the Philippines, because
Sure.
we can pay them a very affordable rate, or it's a good wage
Right.
for them, and they'll
Right.
do, all of my video editors are in the Philippines. So like a
Hmm.
lot of the marketing agencies are going to charge you thousands of dollars a month to edit
Right.
videos when it can be done for way less, and you can actually
Right.
work with that employee directly, and they'll do way better editing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one option. And the second
Yeah.
option is, yes, definitely we help companies. We're getting
Hmm.
after this. I have an interview with a staffing company that
Yeah.
they're
Nice.
hiring a content director, which we
Okay.
help them kind of set them up to be able to hire this person,
Sure.
job descriptions, what they need to look for. And then I'm going to sit in on the interview to make sure that this person's the right fit, because this person's going to film their content with a
Right.
smartphone. They're going to
Right.
manage the back end process. And it's an entry
Hmm.
level marketing grad. And guess what? That company, they don't have to train and coach and mentor every
Hmm.
step along the way. And me and my team are going to help them do that.
Got
So
it.
after 3 to 6 months, this person's a high performer. Now they're with internally with that team. If that
Nice.
company separates from us, they've got the
Yep.
strategy, processing, messaging, talent to be able to
Right.
take it and fly out of the nest if they want to, or stay with us and go levels up.
Got it. And of course, what would that deliverable be? So now you've helped a staffing organization build a content strategy, build both an offshore and potentially onshore solution to drive the strategy, can come up with content. Then what do you typically offer to a staffing agency that has built that internal team?
Well, that is the deliverable for us, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if somebody already has that, it could be, do they have the right people? Are they trained
Got
and
it.
coached and mentored the right way? Is the content
Got it.
performing? Typically, it's not, right? So
Hmm.
we could dive in and say, we've got a strategy issue, we've got a branding issue, we've got a coaching and
Hmm.
mentoring issue, we've got a people issue. right?
Mhm.
Could be a lot of different things, but the end
Yeah,
deliverable for us is to build a internal high performing content and social team that drives builds brand and also drives inbound leads, revenue, and business opportunities for the company. That's the end
got it.
result.
Got it. Sounds good. Now I understand the deliverable much more. So yeah, you're not long term trying to have a video editing, all of that work. You're really trying to set them up so they can take it and run with it. That's awesome. That's
That's it,
beautiful.
man. That's it.
I love it. So, scaling staffing firms. What have you seen? Like, talk to me about some of your success stories. I know you've seen some that are pretty powerful. Can you give me some ideas of what you've seen as far as revenue creation and lead gen? Like, what has worked?
I actually I haven't worked with a lot of staffing companies,
Okay.
so I can't speak to longevity. The company we started partnering with a few
Yeah.
months back is staffing, but we're in the
Yeah.
process now, as I mentioned, of kind of kicking out, to say it
Yeah.
politely, the marketing agency because when we stepped
Yeah.
in, they were doing content with them and it wasn't performing, it wasn't working.
Got it.
The branding and messaging was off, and so now we've got to go back and kind of change these things. And now we're getting ready to turn that page and really go full on with our model.
Got
So
it.
I did, it's funny. I did work with a guy that worked with Aerotek. He's an executive, and he's actually on my LinkedIn recommendations if you check him out. And this is a really cool story, and especially if you're in the staffing world, you'll appreciate this. So Jake is his name, and I worked with him back at Aerotek, my former company. Right, we were together for a couple of years. He actually was one of the people who trained me in the very beginning, which was cool. So, anyways, he
Yeah.
reaches out to me about maybe a year and a half, 2 years after I start my company. He says, "Hey, man, I really want to start building my personal brand." He goes, I know
Okay.
our customers are on LinkedIn more, and that's where people are winning deals. And I'm connecting with people that are potential customers. I just don't really have any
Yeah.
content. I'm not sure what to say. I don't know how to do video. So we partnered with them. I attached, just like we do now, I attached a video editor. We found a video editor
Hmm.
for him in the Philippines. We gave him the messaging, the strategy, the process. We set him up for success, showed him how to make high performing videos. He started making videos, and every video was getting between 50 to 100 reactions. I mean, he was
Right.
absolutely crushing it, like almost right out of the gates because his videos were
Sure.
good. And you can still go
Yeah.
back and look at him. He got promoted to another position, so he stopped making
Okay.
content because he didn't need
Yeah.
to make it anymore with his new position. It
Yeah.
wasn't tied to his goals anymore, which I
Yeah.
get. Like it is what
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
But he could have easily continued on. But during
Sure.
that maybe 4, 5, 6 month process we worked together, he
Mhm.
actually won two 5 million potential deals that were big
Nice.
accounts that they were trying to track down in their
Yeah.
market for over 10 years. So they had
Nice.
they had two big targets. One was in Chicagoland, one was in Wisconsin, and they
Yeah.
had tried to track these opportunities down, people cold calling, emailing for over 10 years.
Yeah.
A couple
Yeah.
of people from the company saw his videos, reached
Nice.
out, booked a call, and of course, in the staffing world, it didn't happen overnight, but after a few
Yeah.
weeks, got the master service agreement, and now they've got a deal that's worth $5 million a year in staffing
Yeah.
services. So
Beautiful.
the opportunity is there for those
Yeah.
that want to put themselves out there and put in the work.
Yeah. That's great. That's an excellent anecdote. Talk to me about the main mistakes that a CEO makes when trying to put out content, and how does a CEO avoid those mistakes when they start thinking about being transparent and getting video out?
The biggest mistake that CEOs make with content and video specifically is
Uh-huh.
they try to, I think that there's two things. One, it becomes all about the CEO and their company. And so
Got it.
they look inward, they look, inward in the terms of what's in it for me? How can I
Hmm.
sell something? How can I make
Right.
my company look great? And instead of
Yeah.
looking outwards at the potential customer and audience and saying, hey, what story are we trying to communicate, and how are we going to connect with our audience and ideal clients? What are they
Yeah.
struggling with? What are their pain points that I could talk about consistently that would actually help them solve problems, even if they never
Hmm.
worked with us a day in their life? Right? How do we
I
really,
like
every
that.
single
How
post I
can I
put out?
give without
Yeah,
expectation? Right.
exactly. How do I give,
Yeah.
give, give, and then you actually
Yeah.
get, just like the
Yeah.
example with Jake. So that's step
Hmm.
number one is they just focus too much on, all right, well, I'm going to be spending my
Hmm.
time making videos. I better get
Yeah.
something out of it. So I'm going to
Right.
mention our company and how we're growing and the awards we won and
Right.
all this stuff. And it's like, well, I'm spending time doing video. It better get me something. It's like, no, no,
Yeah.
no. You're going to spend time doing video to give something. And when you
Right.
give something over and over again, as we all know, you get something in return,
Yeah.
which is inbound leads and business. The second thing is CEOs try to be overly polished. So it's like,
Hmm.
hey, get me, and I'm not saying you can't dress up in suit and ties and that kind of stuff, but it's
Yeah.
like, let's film one video once a
Yeah.
month or two videos a month and let's just me have deliver some scripted message that sounds
Hmm.
nothing like how the CEO is in real life. And
Yeah.
that's exactly how it lands with the audience. It
Yeah.
just feels
Boring.
scripted. It doesn't feel, it's boring. It doesn't really have any emotion. It doesn't really tie back
Yeah.
into their brand or personality. And it
Right.
doesn't perform. That's not the kind of content that works on social media. So I
Yeah.
don't say that you have to be you have to make believe and to be someone that you're not, like some charismatic person or something, or do
Yeah.
something obnoxious. I just want you to show up as the real you.
As who you are.
I would even encourage you to say, hey, can someone film you even behind the scenes? Maybe you're having a
Right.
conversation with somebody else, or you're working with a client, or you're talking to a team and you guys are
Hmm.
making a change or a transformation. Can we highlight some of those things and get some of those things on video? Or can we get you
Nice.
while you're driving to the airport and someone's recording you and you're having a candid conversation about some things that you're
Yeah.
working on for clients or internally? That's the
Nice.
type of content that is going to work for CEOs.
I love it. Change it up. Change the both the location as well as the. I'm sure that adds visual interest, but
Sure.
gets the authenticity, right? And that's that's something that I continue to try to do is really just get that authenticity out. And I mean, even if I never generated one lead with my content strategy, the thing that I'm appreciating so much is that people get to understand who we are. So when I am having discussions, it's funny. I had a conversation I think it was yesterday or the day before, and I joined my team. It was a very large prospect, and I started to do an introduction, and he literally stopped me. He goes, "I know you, Paul." I was like, he's like, "I've been watching you on LinkedIn." I'm like, "Oh, great, okay, great." And we literally skipped the introduction because he felt like he knew me, and I, here's a guy I've never met before, right? So it's so powerful. I absolutely love it. I know I'm certainly going to be trying to change up my some of my videos as far as location and some of the behind the scenes stuff. In fact, we have some behind the scenes coming out. I'm going to be down in Mexico in a
Nice.
couple of months for a little while. So hopefully, I'm going to do some podcasts with some palm trees behind me in the ocean right before I go surfing. So we're going to change
Nice.
it up here pretty soon. So this is great. Well, Alex, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. Good time to be able to really discuss why this strategy works, why it's so important. Any big key takeaways that you'd like my audience to be left with?
Oh man, that we didn't already cover. I mean, I think just it's when you're going to build your personal brand, put out video content, social media content,
Got it.
I would just look at your options in terms of how you can make this happen internally. I really would. I would encourage you to don't just go right to, hey, let's hire a marketing agency. I would say,
Yeah.
hey, can we do this internally, make it more authentic, drive
Right.
more performance, and actually keep the cost down over time because we've got this team internally. Look there first. And if you need guidance and an expert and things like that, then hire somebody to
Yep.
come in and show you the way. But
Yep.
I just don't undercut how easy it is now, and or simple it is now, I should say, to create content from your smartphone with a simple wireless mic that's $130 here or $99 here. It has
Got it.
never been easier to build your brand, reach your customers, and grow your business through video and social media. So the only thing you got to do now is just do the damn thing.
Just do it. Start.
Just
That's a
do it.
great takeaway.
Just
That's
go.
a great way to finish it up. I appreciate it, Alex. Well, thank you for joining us on the Growth Game podcast. This has been excellent. I know my audience will really appreciate this discussion, and I'm sure we'll continue to keep our relationship going and see where this thing goes and how we can help companies continue to succeed. So, thanks again, Alex. Really appreciate the time today.
Pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.